There are moments when the sky feels as if it is closed. You pray, cry out, weep, and nothing seems to happen. God's silence feels like a heavy stone pressing against your chest. You begin to wonder, has he forgotten about me? But listen carefully. God's silence does not equate to his absence. Often, it is precisely in the silence that he is working the most. Do you know those times when everything feels still? The CV that no one responds to. The answer that never comes. The marriage that isn't improving. The diagnosis that doesn't change. It is in this place, where the soul silently cries, that God is working more than you realize. In the Bible, there is a significant moment. 400 years of silence between the Old and New Testaments. 4 centuries without a word from a prophet, without visions, without direction. But it was during this quiet time that God was aligning everything, preparing the birth of Jesus, organizing the empire, connecting nations, establishing paths. While it seemed like nothing was happening, the heavens were in motion. And with you, it is no different. How many times have you felt frustrated for not seeing any results? You wake up, try to be strong, tell yourself you'll carry on, but deep down, you are exhausted. What you don't see is that God is building something behind the scenes of your life. And just because you don't hear his voice right now, doesn't mean he isn't by your side. Do you know why? Because he loves you too much to answer outside the perfect time. Imagine a 6-year-old asking their father for the car keys. No matter how sincerely they ask, the father, out of love, will say no. Because he knows the time hasn't come yet. With God, it's the same. Sometimes a no isn't punishment. It's protection. Sometimes a wait isn't cruelty. It's care. And I know, waiting hurts. It hurts to see others advancing, marrying, thriving, posting their victories while you feel stuck in time. It hurts to see dreams being delayed while everything inside of you screams for change. But listen, if you are waiting on God, you are not standing still. You are being prepared. How many times, without realizing it, have you tried to force the wrong door open? Entered relationships that hurt you? Made impulsive decisions that led to regret? Tried to do things your way because you thought God was taking too long? But He doesn't work to your pace. He works in His perfect time. Think about this. What if what you call a delay is actually the exact measure of time needed for the miracle to happen in the right way? I know there are nights when you lie down and cry into your pillow. No one sees it. You smile during the day, but inside, you are exhausted. You even pray, but your faith feels weak. You say, "Lord, I can't take this anymore." But do you know what God responds? "You've already made it this far, and I am sustaining you." There will be people who abandon you. There will be promises that fail. There will be paths that close. But God's love never fails, and His silence always carries a purpose. It is in those moments when everything is silent that you learn to trust not in what you feel, but in what you believe. There is a difference between faith and feelings. Feelings change. Faith remains. Feelings shout, "Give up." Faith whispers, "Hold on a little longer." You may not see anything right now, but the root that grows beneath the ground is also unseen, and it is what sustains the tree in the future. You are growing roots. You are learning to be strong. You are being shaped to bear the weight of the blessing that is to come. Today, God wants to remind you, just because you don't hear the answer, it doesn't mean He isn't responding. Sometimes, the answer comes as peace, as strength to keep going, as deliverance that you don't even notice. Remember when you thought you wouldn't survive that phase of your life? And even though you didn't understand how, you made it through? Well, you will look back at that difficult time and say, "It was there that I learned to trust. It was there that God made me stronger." Over the next 7 days, I want to challenge you, take 5 minutes each day. Just 5. You don't need to know how to pray beautifully. Just talk to God as if you were confiding in a friend. Be sincere. Open your heart. Say everything you feel. Don't expect an audible answer. Just speak and observe. You'll begin to notice something new. A peace that can't be explained. A strength where there was only exhaustion. A fresh start emerging in the middle of chaos. You're not alone. And God isn't silent because He's forgotten about you. He's silent because He's preparing you for something much greater. Don't give up. What seems like the end could just be the pause before the most beautiful turn of events in your life. There's something that many don't tell you, but it could completely change the way you see your life. The scars you carry are not a source of shame. They are marks of survival. They don't tell what destroyed you, they tell what you overcame. Perhaps today, you look at your own story and only see mistakes, failures, wrong decisions. Perhaps you think, if people knew what I've been through, if they knew my truth, no one would respect me. But let me tell you something that comes directly from God's heart. What hurt you in the past could be exactly what He will use to lift you up in the future. Society teaches us to hide the pain, to hide the struggle, to hide the past. But the Bible shows the opposite. It teaches us to turn trauma into testimony. Think of Moses. He killed a man and fled to the desert. He stayed hidden for years, feeling unworthy, rejected, frustrated. And what did God do? He went to him and said, "It's you I will use to free my people." God took the most unlikely, the most broken, and transformed him into an instrument of deliverance. Do you know why? Because those who have been through much have much to offer. Those who have suffered rejection understand what it means to love truly. Those who have been betrayed learn the value of loyalty. Those who have been humiliated learn to embrace with compassion. You are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what God can do through you. And He uses exactly the parts of your story that you try to hide. How many people today are living paralyzed by shame? How many hide their pain to seem strong? How many maintain a perfect image on social media, but are crumbling inside? Perhaps you are one of them. Perhaps you've thought, if I told what I've done, no one would accept me. But what if I told you that there are people waiting to hear your story? That your truth could be the push someone needs not to give up? The truth sets you free. And when you share your story with courage, you break chains that imprison others too. Look at the story of Joyce Meyer. She was abused by her own father for years. She lived marked by pain, by shame. But one day, she chose not to hide anymore. She chose to speak up, to share her story, and today, she is one of the most prominent Christian voices in the world. Millions have found healing through her testimony. And with you, it can be the same. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need a spotless past or a well-organized life. You just need to be genuine. Do you remember that relationship that shattered you? That betrayal that left scars? That financial crisis that made you feel like a failure? That time when you lost yourself? All of that can be healed. And more than that, it can become a bridge. A bridge between who you were and who God is shaping you to be. But you need to take a step. You need to stop hiding behind the pain. You need to stop pretending everything is fine when it's not. God can't heal what you still hide. I want you to think now about everything that embarrasses you. Everything you've concealed in the darkest part of your soul. Now imagine, what if that very place is where God wants to shine His light? Because it's in the darkness that the light shines brightest. It's in the midst of pain that hope is born. You are not a mistake. You are a story being written by an author who only writes victorious endings. And the most challenging chapters are often the ones that leave the greatest impact when the book comes to an end. Perhaps you think, but I'm nobody, how can God use me? And I ask you, have you ever seen God choose someone perfect in the Bible? David was an adulterer. Rahab was a prostitute. Peter denied. Paul persecuted Christians. And yet, all of them were transformed into giants of faith. The difference isn't in the past. It's in the willing heart. It's in the surrender. That's why today, I invite you to turn your pain into purpose. Do you know someone going through what you've been through? Someone who is crying today over what you once cried for? Then don't stay silent. Don't hide your story. Use it. Your voice has power. Your life has meaning. And your journey, no matter how hard it's been, has value. Perhaps you've never heard this before, but you need to know, you are stronger than you think. And even with all the scars, you are still far too precious to God. What once embarrassed you, tomorrow might be the reason someone keeps going. So rise up, adjust your crown, and tell yourself, I am living proof that God turns scars into testimonies. There are moments in life when everything falls apart all at once. You try to hold on, try to keep your head up, try to smile, but inside, something has already broken. You look around and see no way out. You look within yourself and only find darkness. It's like you've fallen into a hole so deep, so cold, so dark, that you can't even remember what it was like to live with lightness. And then that feeling comes, I've hit rock bottom. And you believe this is the end. But let me tell you something you may have never heard. The bottom of the pit is not the end. Often, it is the very point where God meets you to begin something new. When life knocks you down, when everything slips through your fingers, when there's nothing left to hold on to, it is there that you discover God is still there. Not watching you from above, but beside you, in the depths, reaching out his hand and saying, I am with you, and from here, we will rise together. In the Bible, Joseph experienced betrayal by his own brothers, was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned. At every step, life seemed to push him further away from his dreams. What Joseph didn't realize, though, was that his painful journey was guiding him directly to the palace. The road was tough, but the destination was remarkable. Maybe today you identify with Joseph. Perhaps you felt betrayed by someone who once promised to love you, forgotten by those who said they'd always be there, or wrongly judged despite doing what was right. Maybe you feel trapped in a situation that never seems to improve. You might have lost everything: your job, your marriage, your health, your hope, and all you're left with is a weary heart and silent tears. But listen closely, it's precisely in this place of hurt that the greatest encounters with God occur. When your strength has run out completely, he reveals himself as your true support. Have you noticed how it's only when we hit rock bottom that we finally stop pretending? It's there that pride falls away, masks disappear, and the stubborn "I can handle this myself" becomes a humble cry, Lord, help me. And it's that genuine plea from the depths that moves heaven itself. How many times have you tried to handle everything alone? How many times did you think you could make it on your own? How often have you said, I'm fine, even when you were collapsing internally? Yet now, circumstances have brought you to a crossroads with just two choices remaining: give up or trust. But what if the pit that scares you so much today is actually the foundation of a new beginning? Consider this with me. The pit Joseph was thrown into became the first step towards fulfilling his destiny. Had he not fallen there, he wouldn't have ended up in Egypt, interpreted dreams, stood before Pharaoh, or saved his family from starvation. God used every setback to place Joseph exactly where he needed to be, and he is doing exactly the same for you. Perhaps today you're unemployed, without clear direction, dependent on others for basic needs, food, or paying bills, and every request for assistance bruises your pride. You look in the mirror and no longer recognize yourself. You feel small, incapable, and disappointed. But listen with faith. This stage isn't your sentence, it's your passage. In this pain, God is nurturing humility, empathy, and dependence. And what's truly beautiful is that you won't leave this pit the way you entered it. You will emerge stronger, more receptive to God's voice, clearer about what truly matters, and better equipped to embrace your purpose. Those who have never experienced real depths live on the surface of faith, but those who have been broken and truly felt pain are also those who truly understand grace. Have you heard the story of Inky Johnson? He was an American footballer poised for a promising career in the NFL. But in one match, he suffered an injury that completely paralyzed his right arm. His dreams were shattered. Inky fell into depression, experiencing anger and frustration, but it was precisely at this lowest point that he discovered his life's calling. Today, Inky is among America's most influential motivational speakers, using his personal suffering to inspire countless others. What seemed to be an end became a new beginning. The same can happen with you. You don't need to have all the answers. You only need to choose not to give up now. Refuse to let pain define who you are, or let despair blind you to the fact that a way forward still exists. God didn't bring you this far only to leave you. The pit is not your end. It's simply the place where he digs deeply to lay solid foundations for what's ahead. So even if you're crying today, even if you're in darkness, remember, from the wet, hidden, deep soil come the strongest seeds. You will flourish, and no one will imagine that your blossoming started at rock bottom. Keep going, because heaven has not forgotten you. God is still authoring your comeback story. Perhaps what hurts most today isn't what happened to you, but the fear that nothing good will ever happen again. It's that emptiness you feel when you look ahead and see only uncertainty, that heavy feeling when you think about dreams that once seemed within reach but now feel impossibly distant. Without realizing it, perhaps you've begun to accept that those dreams might not be meant for you. But let me remind you of something powerful. God's promises for your life are still valid, even when everything around you seems to suggest otherwise. Do you recall that verse from Jeremiah 29 verse 11? It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." These aren't just poetic words or comforting phrases. They are eternal truths spoken by a God who never changes, never lies, and never abandons his promises. Maybe you've said, "I've waited too long," or "I've made too many mistakes to deserve this," or even if it were meant to be, it would have happened by now. But here's something wonderful. God's promises don't depend on whether you deserve them, they depend solely on his faithfulness. And he remains faithful, even when you doubt. Perhaps you've spent years hearing you're not capable, not enough, not destined to succeed. Maybe from childhood you've been encouraged to aim low, warned that dreaming big is risky, unrealistic, or not meant for someone like you. And gradually, your dreams began to die. But God didn't place those dreams inside you accidentally. They were planted within you for a purpose, and no matter how much time has passed, he still has the power to revive each one. Perhaps you dreamt of becoming a musician but never found support, wished to start your own business but experienced bankruptcy, longed for a family but remain alone, or desired motherhood but were told medically it's impossible. And now these things weigh heavily on your heart. You watch the years pass and feel as though God has forgotten you. But hear this clearly, it is not over yet. A time of waiting isn't rejection. Sometimes God delays fulfilling a promise because he's strengthening your inner foundations. A blessing received prematurely can become a burden. You've seen people achieve their desires only to lose them, marriages begun in love that crumbled from a lack of readiness, individuals who became wealthy but lost everything due to immaturity, or those who found fame only to be destroyed by the lack of a solid foundation. God doesn't just want to deliver his promise, he wants to prepare you to sustain it. And it doesn't matter how impossible things appear right now. God specializes in transforming impossibilities into miracles. Sarah was advanced in age when God promised she'd bear a child. Humanly speaking, it made no sense. Yet it happened exactly as promised because the God who made the promise is also the God who fulfills it. How many times have you witnessed someone rising from the ashes? It's simply the place where he digs deep, to lay the foundation for the new that is coming. So, even if today you are in tears, even if today you are in the dark, remember, it's from the wet, deep, and hidden soil that the strongest seeds grow. You will bloom. And no one will imagine that this blooming began from the depths of the pit. Keep going, because the heavens have not forgotten you, and God is still writing your turnaround. Perhaps what hurts the most today isn't what happened to you, but the fear that nothing good will happen anymore. It's that emptiness that appears when you look ahead and see nothing but uncertainty. It's that weight on your chest when you think about the dreams that seemed so possible back then, but now seem so far away, so impossible. And then, without realizing, you start accepting the idea that maybe it just wasn't meant for you. But I need to remind you of something powerful. There are still promises of God over your life. And they remain firm, even when everything around you seems to say the opposite. Do you remember that verse in Jeremiah 29 verse 11? "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." This is not poetry. It's not just a pretty phrase to comfort you. It is an eternal truth, written by a God who doesn't change, who doesn't lie, and who never ever abandons what he has promised. Perhaps you say, "But I've waited too long." Or, "I've done so many things wrong that I don't deserve it anymore." Or even, "If it was meant to happen, it would have by now." But you know what's even more beautiful? God's promise does not depend on your worthiness. It depends on his faithfulness. And he remains faithful, even when you doubt. There are people who live for years hearing that they are not capable, that they are not enough, that they were not born to win. Perhaps since you were young, you've been conditioned to think small. You were told, dreaming big is dangerous. Don't get your hopes up. That's not for you. And then, little by little, you started letting your dreams die. But God did not place those dreams in your heart by accident. They were sown with purpose. And no matter how much time has passed, he still has the power to resurrect each one of them. Perhaps you wanted to be a musician but never had support. You wanted to start a business but failed. You wanted a family, but time passed, and you're still alone. Or you wanted to be a mother, but tests said it wasn't possible. And now, all of this weighs on you. You see the time pass and feel as if God has forgotten you. But listen, it's not over yet. The waiting time is not a sign of rejection. Sometimes, God delays the fulfillment of His promise because He is taking care of your inner structure. Because a blessing received at the wrong time can become a burden. Have you ever seen people who achieved what they wanted, but couldn't keep it? Marriages that started with love but fell apart due to a lack of preparation. People who got rich and lost everything due to immaturity. People who gained fame and were destroyed because they had no foundation. God doesn't just want to give you the promise. He wants to prepare you to sustain it. And it doesn't matter if everything seems impossible now. God is an expert at turning impossibilities into miracles. Sarah was already elderly when God promised her a son. To human eyes, it didn't make sense. But do you know what happened? The promise was fulfilled. Because the God who promised is also the God who fulfills. How many times have you seen people rising from the ashes? People who were forgotten, doubted, and even ridiculed. And suddenly, everything changed? Take a look at the story of Nick Vujicic. He was born without arms and without legs. Imagine how many times he felt as though he was out of purpose. How many times he thought about giving up. But today, he is one of the greatest inspirations of faith in the world. Because God does not require perfect conditions. He only needs a willing heart. And your heart, it still beats. It still dreams. It still holds onto the flame of hope. Perhaps it's small. Perhaps it's weak. But it is there. And that is enough for God to begin something great. Today, I want to challenge you to do something different. For the next 21 days, write every day, even if it's just one line, about what you believe God can still do in your life. It could be in a notebook, on your phone, on a loose piece of paper, but write. Even if it seems crazy, even if it feels far away. When you write, you declare faith. You nurture hope. You activate the spiritual movement within yourself. And at the end of these days, I believe something will begin to change. Maybe not on the outside, but on the inside of you. And that is the first step toward the transformation that is coming. You are not forgotten. You have not been left behind. You are still at the center of God's plan. And the promises He made, He will fulfill. Take a deep breath. Lift your eyes. And declare with faith, I will still live out what God has promised me. Because the last word has never been from time, pain, or the world. The last word has always been from God.